Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Tuesday. It is October 6th. We have a chart lesson for today, and I'm doing this a little early again today. I've got another birthday. Today is my daughter's birthday. I think I mentioned before, this is like my birthday stretch, September and October and early November. So I've got quite a few of them in my family over that month and a half, 2 month period there. Um, anyway, one other thing, real quickly, before we get to the chart, we did get the website migrated. It appears that a few people are having a problem getting to the new site. The old site's still there, and we won't delete it for a few days because we want to be sure that the new site, that we've got everything migrated over and we're not missing something. So I don't want to delete the old site. So one of the problems some of you are having is your browser's taking you to the old site. You're not seeing anything updated or not seeing anything going on, and the reason is because you're at the old site. And I think it's created. I haven't had a chance to really dig into it. Just trying to get everything, make sure everything else is working, and following up on my usual stuff and trying to answer a few questions in the forum and so forth. I just haven't had time to um, really figure out how to clear that for some of you. But basically, I believe that it has something to do with your cache. Your browser is caching the old pages, and so it's reloading old pages instead of loading the new stuff. So that's the trick. You got to figure out, depending on what browser you're using. Maybe you Google their help section on how to clear the cache or how to clear out cached pages, because that's what's happening. Your browser just loading an old page instead of it does that for speed reasons. I believe that's why they use the cache. It just helps load the page quicker, but it's keeping you from getting to the updated website is what I believe is happening. So if you're having trouble, the site's there and the midday chart's there, everything new is there, the forum's there with the updated, people are answering questions and asking questions and so forth, and it's all there. But if you're not seeing it, for some reason I believe it's your browser and your cache. Somebody said they opened Firefox. I do know that Firefox is standard set up where it automatically clears all your browsing history and cache and all that after you close it each time. So if you're having a trouble getting there and finding it, maybe try um, Firefox for a day or two, just to maybe you can figure out how to get your other browser going to the right place, or until we delete the other site. Even then, I don't know if it's actually taking you to the old site. Some of you probably know more about this technology than me, but I think what it's doing is it's just loading a cached page that's old, and it's for whatever reason it's not updating the new page. So, but you might Google or use your help section of your whatever browser. It seems like most of the people are having Chrome. I use Edge, and I didn't have any problem with that. I tested, uh, also tested Firefox. I had no problem with that. And then finally, I've tested Chrome, and I had no problem with it either. But I don't use Chrome, so there's probably no um, cached pages in there on my Chrome browser. So that's probably the issue. But it has something to do with your browser, because the new site is there, it's working, and it is fast compared to the old one. We're moving along. Just it was a great upgrade, and it's probably going to take people a couple of days to uh, that are having trouble to figure out how to get there. But we'll get you there, and we'll get it going for you. But it's something to do with your browser. Just try, maybe, like I said, try Firefox and see if that doesn't help you. And if you still can't get there, send me an email and I'll see if I can get some help with it, and we'll see if we can figure it out. But it shouldn't be too difficult. So anyway, let's get to the chart lesson. Actually, I'm trying to back out too quick here. I wanted to talk about we had we had a real weak trend working up here. You can see it's clearly two tiers, and you can tell this trend is valid. And then suddenly we get this push up there. Some kind of news item happened and caused all this. I think we had some kind of news item right in here too. I think one of the I think there was some FOMC speakers today, and I don't know. It doesn't matter what caused it. The thing is, you can see the price action still worked. This, once you turn down here, it was pretty obvious that there's some kind of support across there. So just draw this one and drag it down to the lows, and you'd have been ready for that bounce right there. And then, of course, you get fooled up here with this overshoot, but generally that leads to a reversal, and that's exactly what happened. We got a big reversal, and we didn't quite get two measured legs down. Prices, well, actually, maybe we did before it was over. I think we got a perfect measured move. It's amazing how that works, but if you measure this first leg and look for this second leg down, and yeah, you can see we really, well, we missed it by a couple of ticks. I may not quite have it on the high right there either. So we missed it maybe by a couple of ticks, but that's pretty dang close. That's close enough. So, you know, you could have, I doubt you wanted to ride all this out, but once you got to here and it bounced, I'd probably exit. You might even exit here because that's a, you know, you're giving back a lot of profits right there, taking a chance that it, for this little bit here. So I'd probably exit and just look for a new entry. That's the way I like to do it. So, but do what makes you the most comfortable, because that's the key to trading, is being comfortable. If you're not comfortable when you're trading, you're going to have issues. So just remember that. But let's back out here, go through, and there's not a lot of trades today, so this is not going to take very long. This all has a, I mean, you can really trade this both ways. When prices are, when the EMA is looks like a roller coaster, and prices are up and back and forth, above and below, you can trade that both ways. Even though it's got a slight upward bias, you can trade that both ways. Because it looked like it one time it might have even been a range day. But anyway, we really were kind of running sideways here early on, and you can see that. And we had this little trend working up here, and you get a clear two legs back. I went back and forth. This is a nice second entry, and it does confirm that trend line. I went back and forth about whether to make this one green or not, because it does look a little congestive, and we're not quite back to the midline either. We're still a good, or not the midline, the EMA. We're still a good bit away, and we also had this breakout here out of this congestion, and we never really came back and tested it till right here. That's what this move back was. We're coming back to test it most likely. I'm not quite sure we even get back there. I think the trend line, we get close. We don't quite even get back there. We don't get back, well, we don't even get back there. But anyway, that's what prices were most likely trying to do, come back and test this breakout here. But they run into this, turns out there's a trend line up through there. It never really gets confirmed, this shorter term one that I've got running up through here. But that's because, let me back out here. That's all you had to go with at the time, was this right here. And you can see that prices are working off the midline. But turns out this flatter blue channel is the one. It's just got a real minor uptrend to it. So, but anyway, I'll mark this one blue. It's a clear second entry long. It does confirm this little short-term channel working up here. And but it's real close to being green. And of course, we run up here and we start going sideways, and then you finally get a little, you made this low, you come back, you test it once, and then you come back a second time here. And actually, you really got a second time here. So you might have even considered entering here, because it does break lower and you didn't make the low, so it is a little double test right there. So you could have actually entered here, and I'd just leave it green the same as I did here. So if you didn't enter here, you might enter on this one. And I left them both green because there's not a lot of room back to those highs. And this is really congestive. So they're a little bit aggressive. But the trend is still up, and you're expecting prices to try to make a new high. We're just probably working sideways to come back to the EMA or the midline. It looks like it turns out to be the midline here, and actually it turns out to be this trend line. So when we move across here, and I don't think you want to go short here yet, but then you get a little failed second entry long. Notice that new high, you're working down first entry and then second entry, and it fails pretty quickly. The only problem with this one, I'm not crazy about it because it really just looks like one leg down and then a little two-legged correction. But that also leads you to think, hey, there's a good chance we're going to get another leg down. But there's just not enough evidence of that yet. So this one's a little bit aggressive to be trading as a failed second entry long, because it could just run down here and make a tick or two lower and then turn back up again, because that really looks like one leg up as well, even though there's those two swings. So really those two swings don't really look like two legs down or two legs up. And so that's why I'm a little bit hesitant on that one. And the fact that we're, you get to enter below the little congestion or channel here. Notice the little breakout. That's a pullback to retest it before prices go lower. And then we make a clear two legs down now. There's two measured legs there. I don't have an arrow on it, but you can probably see that one with relative ease. But it's two perfect measured legs down, and then you get a failure. So I treated that one like the failed second entry long. Plus, it confirms that trend line. It's the third touch. It's right at the EMA, the trend line both. And if this trend line's in play right here, which you probably wouldn't even have that yet. So it just looks like we're probably trading a range at this point, probably going lower. And so I'm just trading that like a failure and expecting prices to move on lower in this trend channel right here. That turns out to be a pretty good move. There's another little break higher and lower, but you got to go short right into that. I don't think I would go short way down here. It's just too big a bar and too far away from the EMA, and it does look a little congestive. The best way to enter it would have been one tick below here, but then you're going short right into the support. So I just think it's better off to skip that one. And I don't think you want to go long here yet either. I think you want to wait on a higher low, which doesn't come to up here, and that's not a very good setup. So it's a shame that you can't get any of this move up, but sometimes that's the way it works. Then you get two legs down, and the bias is still up at this point, and it looks like we may have this channel, because you could draw this channel now. If you drug it up to the top, everything's fit, and you can see that midline playing. We came back and tested it there. We tested it from this side there. So it's obvious that once you drew this line, this is valid. And so with two legs back, and really the way I would draw that one would be like so. And you'd want to be concerned about possibly being another channel down there, but at this point, the trend is still up, and you've got a break in a new low and a second entry long, a nice bar. So you may take that one, but it's just not in a good location. There's no key entry point. Well, you could argue maybe the EMA is there, but we're below it. So it's not a great entry. There's reasons to like that trade, but it's not a great entry. So I marked it green. And of course, when it turns down here and confirms it, that's your third touch up there, and it turned down again. And look, it actually breaks higher and turns down and goes out the other side. I like going short one tick below that. If you want to wait on this one, I still think you're fine to go short right there. And you had to be quick, because this thing reversed in a blink there. And it drops down. Then we bounce, and notice there's two legs up, but not a very good signal bar right there. There is a break and a new high. I'd wait on a lower high, and that comes here, and now you got congestion. Then you got a failure that does confirm that trend line, but there's just too much support across there. Um, I mean, you can pretty much see that little channel right there, and you don't want to be going short right into that. Notice we break lower, but it's still just congestion. And then finally you get a little failed break lower there, but I just don't think there's any entries there. Just stay out of that. It's not worth risking it. So we run on down, then we work our way back up. There's another one of those in the middle, uh, and that's what'll happen to you a lot of times trading those in the middle. But this one's a little tighter and a little clearer, and you can tell that's just one leg up, two legs up, and that is a good signal bar. So um, that's just a good example of why a trade like that's dangerous. And if you'd done it right here, of course you get burned. So at this point, it was really hard to know. I mean, you draw this trend line here, and it gets confirmed here, but it's not fitting real well on the low side. So it's really hard to know. You can see it working off that midline though. So there's some clues there that this channel is probably correct. Then we break out, you make a new high, and you actually tick a little higher there. But I'd still treat that like a little trout, and I like going short there. You got plenty of room back to the EMA. So that's that little extra push. And then the bottom falls out here. It's really tempting to go short right there, but a lot of times this is what'll happen. You'll get one more push. So generally you want to wait on a lower high, but this is almost as good as a lower high right here, even though it breaks a little bit higher. If it breaks lower below those two matching lows, we're probably at least headed back to the EMA. And you can see in this case the bottom just fell out. And then we bounce down here, right where you would have probably drawn a trend line across there. Of course, you would have really been better off to find this off the highs, draw it off those three, and then drag it down, and you would have seen it fit right there. And when we bounced here, that gives you a good clue. And you can see it working, that midline across there, right here. But we're moving up. You get a first entry short and a second entry short, and so but that's not a real textbook reversal. There's a lot of congestion right there. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bars. There's a little bit of a trap when it breaks lower and turns up. So you might risk that one, but I think you're better off to wait. And you basically have a double bottom there, so you can count that as a new low. And now you get a true reversal, and you can see how it takes off. The smarter traders that are waiting on a better setup finally see a good reversal, and it comes off the EMA plus the trend line there, and that's what you want to wait on. And look at it go now. That was the trade of the day probably. And it runs up here, and it's right back to that upper trend line. And the only reason I like this one is because it's a little failed breakout. Notice how we got that congestion and it breaks out. And look how far away we are from the EMA and how long we've been. And this is proven resistance up here. So a lot of times you'll catch a important high or low trading these. So being aggressive with these sometimes is worth it. In this case, you don't really get a whole lot out of it. It's an easy scalp. You get a lower high here, but not a very good setup. And then we're bouncing back into the range, and then we take off. And you don't want to go long into this stuff. There is a reversal right here, but you don't want to go long into that. Not into this bigger two-tier channel. That's the trend channel line rather, but you don't want to go long into that. Even though it works, most of the time that's going to fail. And then you run up here. You looks like you get a couple of little breaks outside right here. And then you run up, and the bottom falls out. It shoots through the EMA, pulls back, and you get that lower high right there. Still plenty of room back to here because you could get some support right there because that was acting as resistance. But this one, the bottom just falls out. You get a reversal right there. failed second entry long, but it's not a very good setup. You want that to be off the EMA, but there is a key entry point down through there, and it is right off that key entry point. And it's a long way back down to here. So you may risk that trade. I don't think after that you want to risk anything else. There's really not much. And it pulls back here. And this is a shame that you don't get a lower high or second entry or anything right here. I just don't think you want to risk that on the first entry with that strong a move back. You're expecting it to retest these lows, but I would want to wait on a lower high at a minimum. You don't get that till down here. Now you got your break and a new low in place. You might get a measured move like so, which we basically did, but you don't know that for sure. And so it's just a little bit risky. Too risky to enter anywhere else here. Then we make this low here. We basically make a low. We test it once. We test it twice. But I didn't have enough faith in this support here. But when we tested it again, it's still that far away from the EMA. We're coming back. So really the way I treated this was there's your new low, and then your first test and your second test. And but technically you could count that as a fourth test because you really made a low there, test once, twice, or a third test, so or a fourth touch, however you want to call it. And so, and you can see that's once you kind of pushed a little higher and pulled back that third time, most people see that as a double test and off it goes again. You could almost say that's a double test plus one. And if you test something that many times and it fails, especially when you've been that far away from the EMA, you're probably coming back. This one, you could probably argue for it to be green because that's a big sell-off. So, and we don't have two measured legs yet. But like I said, when you test something that many times, you're probably going to get a bounce. And you can see we might have tested a couple more times before prices broke through. So that was strong support right there. And that took us in the 2 o'clock hour. And again, you can see we basically missed that by just a tick or two. Prices are still trying to go lower. So this market's really volatile. And there's a lot of craziness. That's a lot of price action for not any more trades than we saw there. But it's just hard to trade some of this sometimes when you don't get setups. And I know it's frustrating and you want to, and that's what causes people to force bad trades. So don't force bad trades. And a couple of these green ones, I mean, technically from just after 11 o'clock till almost 2 o'clock, you don't have, you just, there's so much movement there, but you just don't get any good setups. And so it's really hard to trade that. And it's a shame because there's some great movement there. But if you didn't get in on it, don't let it bother you because if you don't see a setup, you did the right thing. And sometimes that's hard to do. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow, but I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.